We're going to move on to item number 5, consent calendar. All items are considered routine or implement by earlier council action and may be enacted by one motion if there is no separate discussion unless requested. And so I will go through the list to see that I know item I, just for a comment, is there items, Council Vice Mayor Medina?
You got it, Mayor. That was I was the one. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there anything that anybody wants to have removed for a separate vote? Councilmember Mason, or just for additional comment or question? Councilmember Mason.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if it'll be a separate vote, but F, it may be a separate vote depending on the answer. And then just for a question is E.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. And I'm sorry, also just for question is G. So F and G for E, F and G for questions. And then if they have to be a separate vote, we'll see. But okay. I don't think they will.
Okay, so why don't we go ahead and I don't see any other hands from colleagues, so we'll go with those 4 items. We'll go to item E. Approve the 2021 City Council calendar and direct staff to cancel the regular City Council meeting of August 10th, 2021.
Yeah, thank you for the staff report. It gave a good explanation of why August 10th is has traditionally been canceled. I wanted to ask if there could be an amendment to also cancel the City Council meeting that's the week of Thanksgiving. Either to cancel that Tuesday's meeting or to have a meeting the following week, because there's normally a Tuesday following till we get to the end of the month. I don't know what the council thinks of that, but the proposal is really just to cancel it the week of Thanksgiving, just to give a break. But if the council would like to have that meeting and not cancel it, then if we could actually then move it to the following week, just to not have it the week of the holiday.
So I guess there's 2 things. It could be either A, see if we need the meeting, but we won't know that now, one, right. But then the second part is if the meeting were needed, whether to move it to another week. So city staff, any thoughts?
Sure. Prerogative of the council, I will say that canceling that meeting or potentially the first meeting in December has been talked about before. One of the challenges that we have when we have, for example, an election year like we had in 2020, is that if you were to cancel that meeting, the last regular business meeting that you would really have would be the first meeting in November. And there are sometimes resolutions and ordinances that need to be adopted at what's called a regular meeting, so a regularly scheduled meeting. And so one thing the city council can consider is to leave that meeting on the calendar, but as the date approaches and we have a better idea what, if anything, substantial could be coming up, cancel it at that time. But if you cancel it, it will not be considered a regular meeting. And then that means that you may have an action that just can't occur. Or you would be in an election year forced to take that action potentially at the first meeting in December, which if there's a changeover in the council, it would be someone's last meeting or potentially someone's first meeting.
So, Councilmember Mason, if we just leave it as is for now and then start to evaluate it as it comes closer with the, as the manager said, the regular, because it has to be a regular meeting. Is the council okay with that?
Is there any reason we couldn't just have a special meeting if we needed to have a meeting to take an action?
So at this point, I think it would be best if the city attorney chimes in and give a few examples of the type of actions that could only occur at regular meetings.
Correct. But City Attorney Zafarano.
Of course, thanks. So briefly, ordinances must be adopted at a regular meeting. They can be introduced at a special meeting, but can't be adopted at a special meeting. So that's one of maybe some other circumstances that I can't think of off the top of my head, but that is one that could raise itself at that time.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on this from colleagues? Comments, questions? Okay, let's go on to item F. F is adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a 5-year contract with Odyssey Power for generator maintenance services in the amount not to exceed $100,000 for year 2021 and the appropriation of $40,000 from the general fund. Councilmember Mason.
I just wanted to ask if the appropriation, is there any reason that the $40,000 coming from the general fund can't wait until next year? We just have so many needs right now. I know this is one of them, but is there any reason it can't be budgeted next year?
So I'll turn that over to our Public Works Director, Jimmy Tan, to articulate the rationale for coming forward with this new requested appropriation at this time.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. This item is one of the items that we're trying to establish for as-needed on-call services. Since Public Works took over the facilities division, we're trying to establish all these on-call services so that we don't have, whenever we run into an issue, we don't have to go ahead and start procuring proposals to have contractors come out and repair or maintain these facilities. So as part of this item here on item F, there are 22 generators within the city, and we have to maintain those generators. Understanding that we have about 6 months left to the fiscal year, even though we do have a contract with the vendor, we may not use the entire amount, depending on the services that we will request them to do, because it's the maintenance that we require is a biannual and annual maintenance. So it really depends on what the request that we require from the vendor. But in future years, it will be budgeted as part of the overall operating budget.
Right. So I think maybe I'm not being clear. So there's my understanding is that there's already $60,000 available from other budgets, and part of this is approving this contractor for a 1-year contract, right? Renewable for up to 5 years. But in addition to that, we're also agreeing to appropriate $40,000 from the general fund. And so what I'm asking is the $40,000 needed, seeing as how we're going to be going into the budget cycle in the next couple of months? Can this move forward with the $60,000 that's already available in other budgets, and then we wait for the $40,000 until the regular budget cycle?
Sure. Councilmember Mason, let me take that. Yes, absolutely, that is an option for the City Council. You could approve the $60,000, which is coming from the water and wastewater funds. We cannot use that $60,000 on any of the generators that support our general facilities. For example, the police department, the library, the city hall complex. And so if we only fund the contract with $60,000 from wastewater funds, if we have an issue where the generator isn't working, as a city manager, I would be forced to either divert funds from some other budgeted line item if they were available, or declare a special emergency and enter into that contract and then ask council to reappropriate the funds later. As the Public Works Director mentioned, one of the things that we're doing with moving our facilities maintenance division to Public Works is we're establishing contracts with vendors. So every time we have an issue, we're not essentially pulling out the yellow pages and asking somebody to come fix it, and then having to figure out how to fund that when it's not in the budget. And so through this contract, we're establishing essentially an on-call contract with a generator maintenance firm, Odyssey Power, where they will want to do regular maintenance and be on call if we need to fire up the generator and it doesn't work. And so that's why you have the recommendation in there to begin this contract and have some funds, yes, for the generators that serve our utilities, but also for our regular facilities in case we have an issue there.
questions?
So if there, just as a follow-up, so if there was an emergency at the regular facilities that aren't part of the $60,000, there would be no delay in getting a generator because that the city manager has the discretion to go ahead and use money from emergency funds right away.
By declaring an emergency, I do. It could be something as small as we have a power outage and the generator at the police department doesn't kick on. And so by having this contract, we'd be able to say, you know what, it's a fully funded contract, go out and fix the problem. Without having a funded contract for general facilities, I would have to declare an emergency or authorize staff to expend other money and then come to you for a appropriation later.
And the next budget cycle will be when would it be effective? So for another $40,000 for the next fiscal year.
So if the city council does not act on this item and desires to push it to the next budget cycle, staff will begin development of the 2022 fiscal year budget next month in February. You will receive the city manager's recommended budget in May, and you will act on that in June for effect July 1. And so we would essentially have roughly 5.5 months without this funded contract. Now, I will say that we have not had this contract in the past, and we unfortunately have not been doing regular maintenance on our generators. And when we have an emergency, we figure out how to take care of it. We are trying to get out of that practice and install more standard business practices with having funded contracts with on-call vendors. And absolutely, there are competing priorities. This is one that we brought to you, given the need to make sure that our generators have regular maintenance and we have a vendor on call and ready to go.
Okay.
Any other? Go ahead. Are we done with the questions for that?
Well, I guess Mayor Medina, would this then be an amendment to what we're voting on? The issue with me isn't the contractor. They've been properly procured from, the staff report. It does a good job of explaining it. Thank you, whoever wrote the staff report. I think it's just a matter of, we are limited on staff right now, given COVID. There's not a lot of staff in all the buildings. And if police and fire aren't going to be inadvertently harmed because you can declare an emergency, I'd rather keep as much in the general fund as possible for the remainder of this fiscal year.
So why don't we go ahead and pull that item and then do a separate action?
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, and then we'll see what the council wants to do. Let's move on to item G. Adopt resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with Andy's Roofing Company, Inc. for roof repair and emergency repair response services in the amount not to exceed $60,000 for fiscal year 2021 and appropriating $40,000 from the general fund capital improvement reserve fund. Councilmember Mason.
Great, thank you, Medina. So same question, to be honest.
Very similar answer. We have not had a on-call roofing contractor, and so approximately 1.5 years ago, we had a number of roofs leaking in the city, and we had to find a vendor that was available to come out. And so, again, instituting more standard management practices in our facilities maintenance division. We went through a procurement process to secure the services of a roofing contractor, and we're requesting to fund that contract. So if we do need those services, we can efficiently execute the work that's needed without additional procurement services that have to take place before they come out and do the work.
Okay, and this one, the $40,000 from the the general fund capital improvement reserve fund is specific also for departments?
So the general fund has a capital facilities reserve fund that is funded by contributions from the general fund. It's not funded by contributions from individual departments. It's funded by the general fund. So during the annual budgeting process, there might be an allocation of $500,000 or $1 million that year to the general fund capital reserve fund for general facility maintenance needs that may arise. And so that fund has approximately $5 million in it. $4.9 million was the estimated ending balance. It's worth noting that this expenditure is coming from the general fund capital reserve, because the capital reserve fund would be the fund that we would go to replace or maintain a roof. Different than our generators, which are not in our capital reserve fund. They're what's called sort of a consumable. When they need to be replaced, we don't go to the capital reserve fund. We budget the replacement.
Okay, and this one is this a 1-year contract?
Yes, it is a 1-year contract, but the funds will not be expended unless we need them. And so the purchase order, if you will roll over, and we would not need to put additional money in that contract unless we use the services. Okay.
So for this one, I'm okay with voting on consent, Mayor Medina, that we're going to go into the rainy season, and that'll happen before we go into the next budget cycle. So I'm fine with that one if the council's okay with it.
So your questions have been answered.
Yes,
okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else on any other colleague have a question on that? Not seeing any hands. So let's move on to item I. Accept a resignation from Personnel Board member effective December 7th, 2020, and Planning Commissioner effective December 8th, 2020. And direct city clerk post a notice of vacancies in accordance with state law. And the Medinas brought this up. And so first and foremost on the Personnel Board, Mr. Roberts, we wanted to thank him for his years of service and time and dedication to the Personnel Board, and wish him the very best. And then there's another guy named Tom Hamilton that we wanted to go ahead and thank for his time, not only on TSPC, he did a lot of years there, but also on the Planning Commission, and of course, Happy New Year and welcome. So with that, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to ask for action from A through J, excluding F. So all but F. I'm looking to council for a motion and a second.
I move to approve.
Second.
I just want to make sure everybody was okay then with keeping the Thanksgiving week as a regular meeting?
Right now, there's a motion and a second on the floor to have A through J minus F as indicated in the staff report.
Okay, so I'm fine with that.
Okay, so roll call, please.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Aye.
Councilmember Mason?
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Marty Medina?
Aye.
Mayor Rico Medina?
Aye.
Motion
Now let's
carries.
go back. Thank you. I'm sorry. Now let's go back to item F. That was the resolution in regards to the generator maintenance. So we've added staff report, so it's either accepting that or making a modification. So looking for council action.
I would propose a modification to accept the recommendation of staff as written, with the exception of the appropriation of the $40,000 from the general fund.
There's been a motion to modify. Is there a second to that? Again, I'm going to ask one more time. Is there a second to that motion? Hearing not, the motion fails for a lack of a second. Can I have action to approve item F?
I move we approve the item as submitted.
I'll second that.
Motion seconded, Salazar Medina, to adopt item F. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Aye.
Councilmember Mason?
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Marty Medina?
Aye.
Mayor Rico Medina?
Aye.
Motion carries.